Hello, boys and girls. It is me and Ari here for another chapter of Wayside School. So we left off, I believe, on chapter 4. Now today I'm going to read chapter 7. I just didn't really love chapter 5 or chapter 6. The good news with the Wayside School books is even though they're fiction and they're chapter books, you can kind of skip around because most of the chapters are their own stories. So I might do it again in the future, but I did skip chapter 5 and chapter 6, but I am going to read aloud chapter 7 to you all. So chapter 7 is called Freedom. And here is the picture. You can see that character is Myron, and he has a bird in his hand, and that bird is named Audley, which is kind of an odd name for a bird. But we are going to read and find out about Myron and Audley. Myron crumbled a cracker on the windowsill next to his desk and then looked away. He knew Audley only came when nobody was looking. A little while later, a bird landed on the windowsill and ate the crumbs. Myron watched him out of the corner of his eye. He was a black bird with a pink chest. Myron had named him Audley. Is that your bird again? Asked Kathy. No, said Myron. Audley is not my bird. I don't own him. He doesn't live in a cage. Audley is free. You're a bird brain, said Kathy. Myron watched Audley fly away. It made him sad and glad at the same time. He wished he could fly away across the sky with Audley. Audley probably thinks I live in a cage, he realized. Whenever he sees me, I'm sitting in this same desk. He probably thinks the desk is my cage. So Myron got out of his chair and sat on the floor. Myron, what are you doing out of your seat? Asked Mrs. Jules. I want to sit on the floor, said Myron. Several kids laughed. Get back in your seat, ordered Mrs. Jules. Myron reluctantly returned to his desk. I do live in a cage, he thought. I'm not allowed out. I have to stay in my cage until the bell rings. Then I have to go down the stairs. Then, when it rings again, I have to go up the stairs. Then when it rings again, I have to go down the stairs. Then when it rings again, I have to go up the stairs. I'm never free. The bell rang. Myron went down the stairs. It was so crowded with kids rushing to recess that he couldn't stop if he wanted. It was as if someone had lifted his cage and was carrying him down the stairs. The bell rang again. Myron went up the stairs. At lunch, the bell rang again. Myron went down the stairs. After lunch, the bell rang again. Myron stood at the bottom of the staircase and looked up. No, he declared. I won't go. I have to be free. As all the other kids rushed past him, he eased his way around to the back of the stairs. As everybody else went up, Myron went down to the basement. Do any of you remember from previous chapters what's in the basement? He nervously walked down the old creaky staircase. He didn't know what he'd find or what would find him. He had heard that dead rats were living down there, or worse, maybe even Mrs. Gorf. Now I know you all remember Mrs. Gorf. Mrs. Gorf was the meanest teacher Myron had ever had. She used to be the teacher on the 30th story before Mrs. Jules took over. But nobody believed that Mrs. Gorf was really gone. Everyone said she was still lurking somewhere inside Wayside School. He stepped off the last step at the very bottom of Wayside School. It was too dark to see. Somewhere he heard a drip that echoed all around the cold and damp room. With his arms outstretched, he stepped across the gritty floor. His hand stuck against a large pipe across his head. The pipe felt like it was covered with 1,000 spider webs. Still, Myron kept his finger on the pipe as he walked, so he wouldn't get lost. As long as he stayed with the pipe, he knew he'd be able to find his way back to the stairs. Something crawled across his hand. He shook it off and then continued walking. He thought he heard footsteps behind him. He stopped walking. The sound of the footsteps continued for a second and then stopped. He started again, then stopped. The footsteps stopped a few seconds later. He wasn't alone. It was too dark for Myron to see who was following him, but he realized that meant that the person couldn't see him either. Whoever was was coming after him had to have been following along the pipe, too. So Myron left the safety of the pipe and headed blindly across the basement. The footsteps continued behind him. He stopped, and then the footsteps stopped. He bent down, then untied and took off his right sneaker. He threw it toward the other side of the basement. He heard it hit on the floor, then the footsteps started after it. Very quietly, he took off his other sneaker and threw it in the same direction. He never heard that shoe hit the ground. The footsteps started after him again. He started to run, but slipped in his soft feet on a spot of slime. His hands hit loud and hard as he fell on the floor. The footsteps came toward him. He held his breath and tried to be as quiet as possible. A light turned on above his head. He screamed. "I believe this is yours," said a bald man. He was holding Myron's left sneaker. Next to him were two men with black mustaches. Myron shook his head. "That's not my shoe. I've never seen that before." "What's your name?" asked one of the men. "Myron," said Myron. He regretted it as soon as he had said it. He wished he made up a fake name. One man opened up a case and took out a notebook. "Myron," he repeated as he thumbed through the notebook. "You're supposed to be in Mrs. Jewls' class, at the desk next to the window in front of Sherry." "I just wanted to be free," chirped Myron. "Please don't hurt me. If you let me go back to Mrs. Jewls' room, I'll never come down here again." "Well, do you want to be free or do you want to be safe?" asked the bald man. "Huh?" asked Myron. "You can't have it both ways," said the bald man. "Do you want to be safe?" asked the man with the mustache. "Do you want to sit in the same chair every day and go up and down the stairs every time the bell rings?" "You'll have to go to school 5 days a week," said the other man with the mustache, "and you'll have to go to the bed at the same time every day. But first you'll have to brush your teeth," said the other man with the mustache. "And you won't be allowed to watch TV until you finish your homework," said the other man. "You'll have to go inside when it rains," said the man with the mustache. "But first you'll have to wipe your feet," said the other man with the mustache. "Or you can be free," said the bald man. The man took a pencil and a piece of paper out of his case. "So, do you want to be safe or do you want to be free?" Myron looked at the three men. "I want to be free," he said bravely. The man with the case wrote something on the piece of paper and gave it to Myron. "Sign here," he said. Myron couldn't read the piece of paper. It was written in some kind of foreign language. He signed his name. The man took the paper and pencil from Myron and put them back into the case. "Okay, you're free." "Good luck, Myron," said the bald man. "Here, I think you'll need this." He gave Myron his left sneaker, then reached up and pulled the chain. The light turned off. Myron found himself alone in the darkness. He put his shoe back on, then hopped across the basement floor. He had no idea how to get back. At last his hand hit against a pipe, but he didn't know which way to follow it, left or right. He didn't even know if it was the right pipe. He turned left and continued hopping, keeping his finger on the pipe. He was just about ready to turn around and try the other way when he nearly fell over the bottom stair. He hopped up the stairs and continued hopping all the way to Mrs. Jewls' room. He was tired, sore, and dirty. "You're late, Myron," said Mrs. Jewls. "Go write your name under discipline. Then return to your seat for your math test." But Myron didn't feel like taking a math test, and he definitely didn't want to write his name on the board. So he sat on the floor. And there was nothing Mrs. Jewls could do about it. He was free. After school, Mrs. Jewls found Myron's other sneaker in the teacher's lounge in the refrigerator. And that is the end of chapter 7. So that was an interesting chapter. I'm not sure how I feel about it. How do you guys feel about it? I think I like some of the other sillier and shorter chapters better. This one left me feeling a bit confused. So maybe we'll learn more about this story. Maybe we won't. We will just have to read to find out. Chapter 8 is called The Best Part. And unless I change my mind, which I could, but I don't think I will, the next time I'm on here, I will read Chapter 8 out loud to you. But between now and then, stay safe, stay healthy, love love you guys, miss you guys. Ari misses you. Well, he doesn't miss you. He's never met you, but Ari, he misses you guys with me. He wouldn't lay down in his bed, so he's not going to be here to say bye. But I hope you all have a wonderful day, and hopefully I will see you soon.